Our first judge, his name is Clarke Miyasaki. Clarke here, he grew up in Idaho. First job was at McDonald's. Can you believe that? He became a manager at a company in California. He attended BYU Provo, and he also got his master's. And he worked for a company, and later on had a startup company, and he worked with some venture capital people, started up a company called Stance. Now, Stance is the official sock maker for our sports athletes, so NFL, NBA, and Clarke is here with his wife and his children, right? Or you by yourself? A wife, okay. And he lives currently in California at the moment. So, if you please give your attention to Clarke. Let me get this for you.
I've never got to do this, so I might as well give it a shot. Brothers and sisters, aloha. Aloha. Oh, it's great. I'm jealous. You guys get to do that so often. Happy to be here with you. First of all, like a huge congrats to all of the finalists. We just got out of a very intense and painful judges meeting trying to come up with the winners. And all of us were super impressed and walking away with nothing but great things to say about your drive and your ideas and how well you did today. I know a lot of you were super nervous, but you came away all winners. It was, like I said, it was really hard to narrow it down to 3 per category. But everyone should be super proud of yourselves, and this is what entrepreneurship is. It's giving it a shot, coming up with a great idea, putting in work into it, and then if you don't win, you pick yourself back up and go at it again. And you fail a lot more than you succeed as an entrepreneur. And that's one lesson that I've seen over and over again as I've invested in businesses and also participated in many. So great job once again, and I was proud and lucky to be here and part of it. So the art of luck, you see that's what's behind me. And where that came from, I was speaking at entrepreneurial program one time, and as is customary, after the program, they had Q&A. And so they opened it up to Q&A in the office, to the audience, and the man on the front row shot up his hand and said, "To what would you contribute your success to?" Hate that question, couldn't think of anything, and then it finally came to me, and I'm like, luck. Like I had contributed to luck. I've been, had a lot of lucky breaks in my career, and just kind of got lucky along the way. And he shoots his hand up again, and the moderator calls on him, and he looks up at me, and he says, "That answer sucks." And so I'm like, okay. He's like, "What, you're just trying to tell us to go out and get lucky?" And I said, "You know what, that is a bad answer." And then I think I made something up about working hard, or I can't even remember what I said. But, as I thought about that, and after my little speech, that was a bad answer. And while I do think luck has played a big part in my career, and I just, who you meet and whatever happens as you go throughout your business career, I am a firm believer in that you create your own luck. And so that's what I'm going to kind of talk to you guys about today, is how to create your own luck. And it's really all about relationships. And so I'm going to tell a bunch of stories today about a lot of the relationships that I have and kind of how I got from McDonald's in Sugar City, Idaho to where I'm at today with Stance and working with rappers and NBA players and leagues and kind of the crazy life that I live that you probably wouldn't expect from a Mormon from Sugar City, Idaho, population 1,000. And a lot of it, like I said, has to do with luck, but most of it's about relationship building. So The first story, kind of what my first lucky break in life happened over a foosball table. So between my junior year and senior year at BYU, I did an internship with a startup called Freeport.com. And this was in the .com days, probably around when you guys were born, or actually before you got, well before you guys were born. But in the .com days, startup culture was you'd raise a bunch of money and you do an internet startup, and it was customary in these internet startups, we'd bring in lunch, we'd have massages, we had like PlayStation consoles, and we had a foosball table, and we played a lot of foosball. And I happen to be like weirdly good at foosball for whatever reason. And I'm also proficient at trash talking. And so the CEO and founder of Freeport kind of took notice of me because on the foosball table. So we'd play a lot of foosball. We started to become good friends. I ended up signing on full time after my summer internship and worked with him. And Jeff Curl was that person, and Stance is now our 5th gig together. So when I talk about the art of luck, like, it was my lucky break to get on at Freeport. It was my lucky break to meet Jeff. It was my lucky break to be good at foosball. But what I did with that relationship and how hard I worked at Freeport, that's kind of really made the whole difference in my career. And so knowing that I wanted to do startups, and I knew I wanted to be kind of in the startup world, and being from Sugar City and not knowing what I was doing, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go get my MBA, go work at a big company, get my MBA, and then I'll have permission to do startups. And so I chose Ford Motor Company. That was the job that I wanted. I worked really hard to get it. They paid for your MBA at Michigan. My wife and I moved out to Dearborn, and I started at Ford. It was going great. I was on this management track program, and they were going to pay for my MBA. And about 6 months into my job, I got a call from Jeff. And Jeff said, hey, I need you to quit Ford, and I just joined a venture capital fund. Come join. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, I'm on this management track program. I have this vision for how my work career is going to go. And he's like, no, give it all up. I said, no. And that call came about every month. And after about a year at Ford, I'm like, okay, I'll at least go check out what you have to say. And I fell in love with kind of venture capital and ended up making the leap and left kind of the comforts of what I thought the vision of my career track was going to be. And I joined him at venture capital and realized pretty quickly that venture capital, those jobs are really hard to come by. And I ended up being closer to the startup community than I ever would have been staying at Ford and doing my MBA. And that was all because of a relationship that I built. And more, trust in that relationship. Because of like one strong relationship, my entire career path that I thought it was going to be was thrown off. But it was because of my trust in him. And as I've gone throughout my career, this is kind of the story that plays over and over. And it kind of played the same. So after a couple of years at venture capital, we decided to go and do the startup thing. We joined a startup called LogoWorks. Built it from, I think, 5 employees to about 85 employees. Ended up selling it to Hewlett-Packard. And I was on, you have to stay on with Hewlett-Packard for a year. It's called a lockup. And when my lockup was done, I got a call from Rick Alden, and he was at Skullcandy Headphones. Maybe a lot of you guys have probably heard of Skullcandy Headphones. And this was when the company was just getting started. And he said, hey, Clarke, can you come up to Park City sometime and meet with me? I said, sure. So I went up to Park City. I opened up the door to his office. He looked up at me. He said, how much money do you make? Like, how much money do you make, Rick? What kind of question is that? And he sat me down. I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to go create deals for our headphones with rappers and athletes and skaters and cool brands. I'm like, Rick, I am a Mormon from Sugar City, Idaho. I am the last person that is going to go do deals with these guys. Like, what am I supposed to say to a celebrity? And so I told him no, and he kind of persisted, and he said, Jeff Curl, once again, kind of Curl comes back to my story. He was the chairman of the board at Skullcandy. Jeff said, I have to hire you and that you'll figure it out. And so after turning him down a couple times, which is always good for your offer, as they kept trying to get me to come back. I finally said yes. And my wife and I were building a house in Lehi, Utah at the time, and she's like, should we stop building and move up to Park City? I'm like, no, this will probably be 3 months. We'll go show them that I don't know what I'm doing, and this is probably not going to work out. So I went up to Skull Candy in Park City and threw myself into the world of late night clubbing, athletes, cold calling agents, and this world that I just didn't know. And I remember, I think I have a picture with Snoop up there. I remember before my meeting with Snoop, I called all my friends, I called my wife. I'm like, what am I supposed to talk to Snoop Dogg about? Like, what's the latest strain of medical marijuana? Like, what do I need to know? What am I supposed to talk to Snoop about? So as I sat there in his smoke-filled trailer, as I waited for him to, come in after he was done with his show, nervous, and he came in, and I showed him the headphones and talked to him. He ends up loving sports too, and it actually was a totally easy conversation for me to have. And so he was one of the very first people I signed, and he ended up being extremely valuable for the brand. And this is when Snoop was kind of at his peak a while back. And super valuable for the brand. We became somewhat good friends. In fact, he was doing a newspaper interview one time, and he referred to me as my homie Clarke, which might be like the highest compliment that you can get from Snoop. But so I kind of like threw myself into that world, and I think one of the keys to that is I was gone all the time from my family and in situations that you wouldn't want to find yourself in. And I get that question a lot, like, well, wasn't it hard? Like, didn't people ask you to drink? And wasn't it hard being in that? And I always told people, I'm like, it actually wasn't, because I never wavered. I had decided early on that I was going to stick to my values. And even though I was backstage with Jay-Z right before he went to perform, and they poured a shot. They have a tradition that they all take a shot before. So, there's 7 of us backstage. They pour the shots. I'm like, no thanks. So I had to stand up, but it wasn't hard. It was never hard to be who you are, because I had my faith, and because the positions that I was put in wasn't going to change who I am. And now when I go out with, whoever it might be, a celebrity or NBA player, people know, and it's kind of just a joke. Like, they're ordering their drinks, and it's like, he'll have a Shirley Temple, and just to kind of make fun of me and what it is. But they all respect it, and they know. And so I think that's one thing as you go out, no matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you can still stand up for who you are and what you believe in. What profession you're in really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So the lesson here, that was a long story to teach this one lesson, is basically treat everyone like your big break. You don't know where your big break's going to come. Like, my big break came over a foosball table that ended up ending with Snoop Dogg. But treat everyone like that, because at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. The second lesson is hustle hard. Hustling, to me, is different than working hard. Working hard now is table stakes. Everybody works hard. Like, you're going to go out and find somebody that's going to work as hard as you. But hustle is different than work. And I love to tell the story of my buddy Andre Iguodala with the Golden State Warriors for this. So in 2015, they were playing the Cleveland Cavaliers in the finals. And I went out to watch him in Cleveland in games 3 and 4. And we were going to go to dinner. Game 3 was on Wednesday. Game 4 was on Friday. So we were going to go out to dinner on Thursday. So I called him on Thursday night around 6:30, asked if he was ready for dinner. He said, no, I got to go get a lift in. I'll call you when I'm done. And I didn't get the call, so I'm sitting by my phone starving. Didn't get the call till like 9:30 when he was finally ready to go to dinner. And if you think about that, this guy is guarding the best player in the world, LeBron James. He got done with a full day of practice. He had to do all the finals NBA interviews. And he still, at 6:30 at night, had to go get a workout in. He went and worked out for 2.5 hours before he went to dinner. Why? Because that guy hustled hard. As he was working out, I'm sure he was envisioning holding that trophy at the end of the finals. It was worth it to him. That was his habit. His habit was working out. He wasn't going to miss a workout just because he happened to be guarding the best player in the world for 40 minutes. And that is hustling hard. And the kind of conclusion to that story, he actually became the first NBA player ever to not start a game in the entire regular season and be named Finals MVP. So not only did they win the championship, but he also won Finals MVP. And it's that work ethic is the lesson to take away from that. You guys, everyone is going to work, and you have to outwork them. And keep proving yourself. And you're the underdog, always. And if you keep that attitude, it'll end up paying off in the end. I'm not sure you're going to win a Finals MVP trophy, but it'll end up paying off for sure. The next one, and this is, I think, apropos for you guys at this time, is just aim high. This is a story about when I was at Skull Candy, we had all these NBA athletes, and you can see them up there. I think there's 2 MVPs, a Finals MVP, a runner-up MVP. And I had this great idea that we should get them all together to do one photo shoot with them all together. And if my head of basketball came to me today and said, hey, let's get all of our guys together for a shoot, I'd be like, dude, are you crazy? Like, you can't do that. You can't get all those guys in the same room. They have all these schedules. There's egos. You can't do that. And why did I do it back then? Because I was dumb. I didn't know any better. Like, I didn't know that you couldn't do that. And so I didn't have the ability to talk myself out of it because I didn't have enough experience yet. And so I always use that story to tell myself to aim high, shoot for the stars, because you never know what's going to happen. And as you guys are taking your business ideas and thinking about something, keep aiming high. There's no reason you can't do anything that you want to do, and just keep striving for it, because if you don't, then it's not going to happen. You definitely miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I kind of took that lesson and applied it to kind of my dream of becoming the on-court sock of the NBA. So at the NBA, we partnered with the NBA in about 2014 just to do casual socks. And Jeff, who is the founder of Stance, asked me early on and said, what would be like your moonshot? What would be the number one thing that you could happen at the NBA? I'm like, oh, or with Stance socks. I said, oh, that's easy. If we could become the NBA on-court provider, that's number one over anything. And this was far-fetched at best. Stance, as most of you know, started in surf, skate, snow, fashion, sneaker boutiques. We didn't even have a performance sock for the first 4 years that we were in existence. But that was my dream, and that's kind of what I had in the back of my mind. So we had a casual license with the NBA. We did like old school Larry Bird socks and some old school logos. And we were doing pretty well with the license. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to talk to the NBA about my dream. So we're sitting in a meeting, and I brought it up. I said, hey, one more thing I want to talk about is becoming the on-court provider of the NBA. And these are most of my friends. I've known them for 6 or 7 years. And to say I was laughed out of the room might be an overstatement, but I was basically laughed out of the room. In fact, one of the guys said, oh, Clarke, that's cute that you think Stance could be the on-court provider of the NBA. And so I kind of left dejected. My dream was in shambles. It didn't keep me from bringing it up a couple times more. Once again, bring it up. They tell me no. And we had a meeting scheduled for All-Star Weekend in 2014 in New Orleans. And we were going to talk once again about this NBA on-court. I knew it would come up. And I knew I was going to get told no again. So I called my CFO. I was trying to think of ways to turn the no into at least a maybe. So I called my CFO and I said, hey, I need $1 million check payable to the NBA in August 2015. He's like, you mean like a voided check? I'm like, no, it has to be a real check. It has to be a real $1 million check. And he relented, talked to my CEO. I got this check. So I went out with my $1 million check in hand. We went to a meeting. They're about to tell me no. I pull out my $1 million check in an envelope, and like out of a movie, I slide it across the table and ask them, hey, before you tell me no, open that up. And so she opens it up, and the first thing she says is like, that's not real. I said, it is real. That's $1 million check. That's a check you're going to cash when we become the NBA on-court provider. And it kind of changed her attitude and changed the way that she thought about us, and got us on the dance floor to start talking to the NBA. So fast forward about 9 months, we closed the deal. This is my favorite quote from all of the press that we received on becoming the NBA on-court sock. That means that the Stance logo, and not that of Nike, Adidas, Reebok, or any other iconic brand that existed before 2009, is going to be the first to have its emblem stamped on a licensed piece of league equipment. So the dream was realized. I remember being at the first game that night and seeing that beautiful Stance logo on all the NBA players running around the court, and just thinking like, man, it all worked out. And it was one of those moments. There's very few moments in your career where it kind of like just pays off, and that was one that paid off. And I'll always be kind of thankful for everyone involved and for the chance that it put me in that moment. So as we know, when I give this talk in a business setting, we kind of talk about how luck plays a big part of it. And we all know that really our version of luck is clearly Heavenly Father's hand playing a role in our life. And I learned early on how much Heavenly Father plays a part in my life. As I was preparing to go on my mission, we got our patriarchal blessings very late in Sugar City, Idaho, for whatever reason. So I actually already had my mission call before I got my patriarchal blessing, and I was called to San Bernardino, California, English speaking. And I got my patriarchal blessing, and during it, the patriarch blessed me with the ability to learn a language. And after the blessing, he said, "Hey, you have your mission call?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to California." And he's like, "Spanish?" I said, "No, English speaking." And because of that blessing, I kind of thought I'd go to the MTC, get switched over, or something weird would happen. Nope, I went through the MTC, standard 2.5, 3 weeks, got to California with about 35 other missionaries. And when we landed, our mission president met us at the airport, and we were all in a circle. And he looked at us and said, "Hey, welcome to California. So you know what we're going to be doing, interviews back at the office, and 2 of you are going to be switched over to Spanish speaking." And when that happened, I immediately knew I was going to be one of those 2 people. And sure enough, as I met with the mission president that day, he said, "Clarke, do you have any money?" I said, "Yeah." He said, Go buy some Spanish books, wake up an hour early, and teach yourself Spanish." I said, "Okay, President, I'm on it." And I knew, you just think about all the luck, quote unquote, or coincidences that need to happen for me to get called to that mission by the 12 apostles with that mission president that happened to switch 2 missionaries over to Spanish. And I knew at that time that gave me such a great base and a testimony that Heavenly Father's hand plays such a big role in every part of our lives, in our careers, in our families. My wonderful wife's here, and meeting my wife at BYU. And I'm so thankful for a gospel that has given me that knowledge and played such a big part of the luck that I've been able to encounter in my life, and hopefully taken advantage of by working hard and maintaining my relationships and aiming as high as I can. And once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be out here and be inspired by you students and the mission at BYU Hawaii. So thankful for this opportunity to speak as well and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.